Amen. Paul is one of our street friends. He comes to the 8:30 service mostly. He was just here and left, but this morning he came late. He was unable to get a bus to come into church today, and so he walked. He started walking at 6:30 this morning and got to the 8:30 service then about 10 of 9. And at the end of the service, he asked to pray with me, and he recited the words of the 23rd Psalm. And he said his parents told him that he needed to recite these words, that he needed to have them memorized to remind him that God was always present. And he just stood there and very eloquently and very dramatically recited the words to Psalm 23 with a smile on his face. He definitely trusts in God. He makes his rounds between the churches. He's not even coming to look for coffee or food or whatever. He really sincerely finds comfort and peace coming to worship. And so he hops from our church to the Lutherans to the Baptist church, and I don't know where else he goes. But obviously, coming to worship and being welcomed by God's people means something to him. Trust in the Lord is a saying that some of us just kind of throw out there from time to time. We know that those words are written on posters that hang in Sunday school rooms, on greeting cards, and on coffee mugs. When we're having a rough patch in our life and we tell someone our story, inevitably a helpful person will smile at us and say, "You just have to believe. You just need to have faith. Trust in the Lord." For most of us, drinking our coffee out of a Trust in the Lord coffee mug or a Just Believe mug does not help much. Nor do we find comfort from someone who quickly answers us after we tell our story, thinking we will feel better when they say, "God does not give us more than we can handle," which, by the way, is not in the Bible. Yet trust in God is at the center of the passage that Linda read from Jeremiah and Jesus' sermon on the plain. The words of the prophet and the words of Jesus call us to consider what it really means to have faith, to believe, to trust that God is at work, and this is not all that it is. The words of Jeremiah and Jesus invite us to move beyond simplistic thinking, a thinking trap of either or that so many of us get caught up in, and then, of course, that either or thinking always fails us. If I do this, this will happen. If I don't do that, this won't happen. And you and I know that life doesn't work that way. And there's a lot of times we do things that we think are good and healthy and it doesn't work out. And there's other times where someone does something that we think is really bad and there's a good outcome. That's just the way life is. After a time of prayer on the mountain, Jesus has come down to a level area. He gathers his disciples with all kinds of people: Gentiles, the poor, people with diseases, people with unclean spirits, hungry people, people hungry in body, people hungry to know that someone cares, people hungry for freedom, for dignity, for acceptance, for peace, for hope. These words may sound a bit familiar because there's also a version of this found in the Gospel of Matthew. But in Matthew, Jesus delivers this sermon on a mountain. We call it the Sermon on the Mount. In Luke, this is really an important feature. In Luke, Jesus is not on the mountain. Jesus has come down from the mountain. Jesus has come down from a high place to the plain, the same level as the crowds. And in the crowd are people we know from Tyre and Sidon, which were not known to be the finest of cities in that region. And we hear that there was a multitude of people from all of Judea and all of Jerusalem. That's a lot of people. In other words, there are a lot of people that came to hear Jesus and came for healing. A lot of different people. And Jesus met them on their level, eye to eye, face to face, and he speaks compassionately to the crowd. And he identifies with the crowd by standing with them instead of above them. And Jesus heals all of them as the story goes, with his power flowing out of him to everyone there. And you may wonder how these words about blessings and woes is really a compassionate sermon. But Jesus, once again, is speaking on the level. He's speaking a truth that so many of us knows. Imagine the faces of those gathered waiting to hear the words of Jesus. Imagine the people who come with possibility and hope. Picture that Jesus doesn't preach the sermon or give them words first. Jesus embodies grace and love and healing. He acts compassionately before he starts talking. He heals them without question or condition because they are there, because in faith they came, because they came in need. He doesn't hand them a poster or a mug that says, "Trust God" on it. He comes and embodies before them love and grace. And then the words come. And Jesus stands with the prophets who have gone before him. He speaks about what the reign of God is all about, and it's not in the ways that we think. That the words of the prophets often turn expectations upside down, the same with these words of Jesus. Blessings are given to the poor, which to the crowd would sound incredibly absurd, because in that century and even today, words couldn't be seen as scandalous because poverty was often considered a punishment for sin. And even today, we must admit that many of us go to a place in our head or heart where we ask ourselves the question, what did they do that they are poor? Jesus did not ask the causality. Jesus sees their need and he heals them. And he heals everybody. If there were lepers, he healed them. If there were Gentiles, he healed them. If there were people who were grieving, he healed them. He brought them the word, and he says, "You have received this power from me, and now go. Go and live. Go and live." Jesus sees the poor, the hungry, and those who weep as blessed. And even though these are things we strive to avoid, it happens to us. It happens to us. And Jesus says that we are blessed even when people hate us. How in the world can we be blessed if people hate us? And yet you have to think about it. Sometimes we are hated for the very thing that Jesus asks us to do, which is to speak words of justice, to reach out to those who others diminish or push to the sidelines. How in the world can we be blessed with what culture sees as a failure, as ugly? And yet Jesus says that's not all that there is. See, these are radical statements from Jesus. Like, we can fill our lives with all kinds of things, all kinds of stuff, and they're still empty. The world diverts our time and our attention to things that do not feed us spiritually or emotionally. And woe to us when we fear sharing our resources with the poor. Woe to us when we do not shed tears with our family and friends, even those whose names we do not know. See, the blessings come upon those who recognize their need for God and will fill their lives with the things that will last. In the great reversal of God's kingdom, those who give of themselves, committed and dedicated to others, will be blessed. They will be filled. They will laugh. They will find satisfaction. The poor and the hungry are well aware of their situation. They are well aware that they are totally dependent, many times, on the grace and care of others and on God. Woe to those who believe they can do it all themselves and take comfort in their resources and not think that those resources are meant to be shared as a gift to others. And woe to those who are preoccupied only with themselves. Blessedness is not about being happy. It's about standing in need of God and filling our lives with that which will last. Blessed isn't about being entitled or receiving a reward for good behavior. Blessedness does come from having faith, from believing that who Jesus is and who we follow as Jesus Christ's actions in the world can make a difference. There will be heat and there will be drought in life. There are poor people, there are hungry people, there are weeping ones, there are people that will dislike us and hate us. So how then are we called to live? By trusting in God and not thinking it's just a throwaway saying. Jeremiah reminds us that we will live when we not put our trust in human beings and human power, but that we trust in God and put our roots deep into the soil of God's love and grace. If we don't, we're like a shrub that just shrivels up and dies in the midst of the heat and the challenge and the lack of water. Trusting in God is planting our roots in the ground, deep roots that will sustain us in those times of drought and storm. Root ourselves by the stream of what gives life. Maybe we, like Paul, should recite the 23rd Psalm every day. The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. Jesus' Sermon on the Plain is a show of blessing and healing, and at the same time, it's a call to faithful action, a call of discipleship. We are called to live lives of blessing and be a blessing to others. So great that our kids today demonstrated what a blessing they are. They bless us with their love and care, their enthusiasm, their curiosity, their smiles. And you were blessed by each one of them coming to you and indicating to you that you are worthy, that you are blessed, that you are a beloved child of God. Jesus comes to us plainly to tell the truth of what it means to live faithfully. And Jesus asks us not to just make a difference in the world, but to make the world a different place. Amen. May we join our hearts in prayer. Generous and gracious God, you call us to be like trees planted by streams of water, planted firm in our faith. We offer our praise to you. In our worship, we seek to glorify you, to tell through song and shouts of praise that you are a great and loving God, that you bless us with your presence. The fires of your Spirit burn within us, and as we know, you care for all of your people. And so we know that there's many concerns that are upon our hearts. And so we remember those who are sick and hurting today, for those who are grieving and anxious, for those who are oppressed. And we ask that you be with your people, all of your people, those we know and those we do not know, and help us to be your all-embracing love to anyone that we encounter. We trust in your presence, loving God. Help us to share smiles and compassion and concern, forgiveness, and resources and hope with those we meet each day. And help us to never forget your presence in our lives. May we sense you with us always, and so be moved to live in your ways. Help us to have faith in you, a deep faith that is planted like a tree by living water, so that our faith is always grounded in the knowledge and the comfort of your love for us. Amen.